A new housemaid pulled something out of the billionaire's daughter's ear. Something that had been there for 8 years. Something 32 doctors never bothered to check. The moment it came out, the 8-year-old girl gasped. Her eyes went wide. Austin Joshua collapsed. His daughter, deaf since birth, could suddenly hear. And the person who saved her wasn't a specialist. Wasn't a surgeon. She was the house help he'd hired 3 weeks ago. The woman he almost fired that same morning. What she discovered would expose a betrayal so deep, it would shake everything Austin believed about trust, money, and miracles. But to understand how a housemaid succeeded where specialists failed, we need to go back 3 weeks. Austin's wife died the day Nora was born. Complications during delivery. The doctors saved the baby but lost the mother. Austin blamed himself. He blamed the universe. And somewhere deep inside, he feared Nora's deafness was punishment for something he could never undo. Since that day, guilt lived in his chest like a heavy stone. He spent 8 years searching for a cure. The last specialist, a famous doctor in a glass tower, barely looked at Nora. He glanced at old scans, nodded twice, and said the magic words that kept Austin paying, "Let's try another treatment protocol." 6 months later, same doctor. Same scans. Same expensive words. Nothing changed. But the bills kept coming. Nora spent most of her time alone. She watched other children on screens, laughing at sounds she'd never heard. She touched her right ear often. Sometimes she winced. Sometimes she pressed hard, as if trying to push something out. No one noticed. Everyone was too busy being careful around the billionaire's broken daughter. Austin hired many helpers over the years. Most stayed quiet and distant. Some were scared of doing the wrong thing. Others treated Nora like fragile glass, something to dust around, not touch. Then one Tuesday morning, a young woman walked through the servants' entrance carrying everything she owned in one small bag. Her name was Grace. She had 3 weeks to save her grandmother's life. This job was her last chance. She had no idea she was about to save someone else's daughter instead. Grace was 27. Soft-spoken. Simple clothes. Kind eyes that noticed small things. She came with no big stories, only one request. "I need work," she said gently. "My grandmother is sick." The head housekeeper warned her on the first day. "Do your job. Do not cross boundaries. Do not get close to the child." Grace nodded. She always did. For the first 2 weeks, Grace worked in silence. She mopped floors, scrubbed counters, washed clothes. She moved like a shadow, careful not to be seen or heard. But something about Nora pulled at her heart. Maybe it was the way the child watched mouths instead of eyes. Or how she smiled even when ignored. Or how she sat on the floor, alone, lining up toys without making a sound. Grace began to clean Nora's room every morning. One morning, while cleaning the hallway outside Nora's room, Grace heard a soft thud. She paused. Against every rule, she peeked inside. Nora had knocked over a glass of water. She stood frozen, staring at the mess, terrified. Grace knew that look. It was the look of a child who expected punishment for an accident. Grace glanced down the hallway. Empty. She stepped inside. Nora's eyes went wide with fear. Grace smiled gently and knelt down. She picked up the glass, wiped the water with her apron, and placed a hand softly on Nora's shoulder. Nora didn't pull away. For the first time in weeks, someone touched her without pity. Without frustration. Just kindness. Grace pointed to the clean floor, then gave Nora a thumbs up. Nora's lips trembled into the tiniest smile. That afternoon, while the other workers rested, Grace quietly slipped into the garden. Nora sat on a stone bench, drawing circles in the dirt with a stick. Grace approached slowly, holding a small flower she had picked. Nora looked up, startled. Grace smiled and handed her the flower. Nora hesitated, then took it. Her face softened. Grace sat beside her, careful not to crowd her. She pulled out a small notepad and wrote, "You are beautiful." Nora read it and blushed. She wrote back in shaky letters, "Thank you." Grace wrote again, "Does your ear hurt?" Nora froze. Her eyes filled with tears. Slowly, she nodded. Grace's pulse quickened. She pointed gently to Nora's right ear and made a questioning face. Nora nodded again, harder this time, as if she had been waiting years for someone to ask. Grace wanted to cry. All this time, all this pain, and no one had listened. That night, Grace prayed, "God, I don't understand why this child suffers. But if you can use my hands for anything, I'm willing." Days turned into weeks. Grace watched Nora carefully. The child touched her right ear constantly. Sometimes she winced. Sometimes she cried. Grace had seen that exact behavior before, years ago, when her young cousin couldn't hear properly. The doctors had missed it then too. Everyone assumed the worst. But her aunt, a simple woman with no medical training, noticed a thick blockage. One careful removal later, her cousin heard perfectly. Grace's heart pounded. Could it be that simple? Could all these specialists have missed something so obvious? She wanted to tell someone. But who would listen to a house help? The head housekeeper would fire her for speaking out of turn. Austin Joshua would never take advice from a servant. So Grace did what she knew best. She prayed harder. One Thursday evening, Austin left for an international business trip. The mansion felt emptier than usual. Around midnight, Grace woke to the sound of crying. She found Nora curled on her bedroom floor, clutching her ear, sobbing silently. The child's face was twisted in pain. Grace's hands shook. Every instinct screamed at her to get help. But the nearest doctor was 30 minutes away, and she had no authority to call anyone. Grace knelt beside Nora and gently touched her shoulder. The girl looked up with desperate, pleading eyes. In that moment, Grace made a choice that would change everything. She sterilized a pair of tweezers over a candle flame. Her hands trembled as she whispered a prayer. "God, guide me. Protect this child." Nora seemed to understand. She lay still, trusting this woman who had shown her nothing but kindness. Grace carefully tilted Nora's head. With steady hands and enormous faith, she worked gently. Slowly, patiently. And then she pulled. A thick, dark, hardened mass came out. Larger than anyone would expect. Years of buildup, pressed deep inside. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then Nora's eyes went wide. Her mouth opened. She gasped, not in pain, but in shock. The wall clock ticked. Nora's head whipped toward it. A car horn sounded outside. Nora jumped. Grace's own breathing. Nora stared at her in wonder. Tears poured down the child's face. Her lips trembled. She opened her mouth and spoke her first clear word in 8 years. "Daddy." Austin's phone buzzed at 2 in the morning. He was in a hotel room halfway across the world, reviewing contracts. The head housekeeper's voice cracked through the speaker. "Sir, something has happened with Nora. The new house help did something to her ear. You need to come home immediately." Austin's blood ran cold. His heart stopped. Then rage exploded through his chest. He didn't ask questions. He didn't wait for explanations. He booked the fastest private jet available and called his head of security. "Find the house help named Grace. Lock her in the staff quarters. Don't let her leave. If anything has happened to my daughter, she'll answer for it." 6 hours later, Austin burst through his mansion doors. His eyes were red. His jaw was clenched. Security had already detained Grace in a small room downstairs. But before Austin could storm toward her, he heard something that made him freeze. Laughter. Not just any laughter. His daughter's laughter. Clear. Loud. Joyful. Austin's legs almost gave out. He hadn't heard that sound in 8 years. He'd almost forgotten what it sounded like. He ran toward Nora's room. She was sitting on her bed, clapping her hands together and giggling at the sound it made. When she saw her father, she leaped off the bed. Daddy, Daddy, I can hear you. I can hear everything. Austin dropped to his knees. Tears poured down his face. He pulled Nora into his arms, unable to speak. She wrapped her small hands around his neck. Grace helped me, Daddy. She made the pain stop. And then I could hear. Austin's mind spun. Medical impossibility. Years of specialists. Millions of dollars. And a house help with no training had done what no one else could. He didn't understand. But he needed answers. Within an hour, Austin had Nora at the country's top private hospital. He demanded every test available. Hearing examinations. Ear scans. Full medical workup. The lead doctor came back 3 hours later. His face was pale. Mr. Joshua, your daughter's hearing is perfect. Completely normal. Austin's voice shook. How is that possible? Every specialist said she was born deaf. The doctor hesitated. He pulled out a file, years of old medical reports from international hospitals. Sir, I need to show you something. These scans from 4 years ago clearly show a mass blocking your daughter's ear canal. The doctors noted it, but they labeled it as secondary to congenital deafness. Austin stared at the reports. His hands began to shake. They saw it. They saw the blockage and did nothing. The doctor looked uncomfortable. It appears they assumed the deafness was permanent and the blockage was irrelevant. Or perhaps they prioritized continued treatment over a simple removal. The words hit Austin like a hammer. Continued treatment. Continued payments. Continued millions flowing into their hospitals. They had seen the problem. They had ignored it. They had let his daughter suffer. They had let him suffer. All while cashing his checks. Austin felt sick. He had trusted the best doctors in the world. He had believed their expertise. But a humble house help with faith and sharp eyes had seen what they refused to see. He returned home that evening in silence. His anger was gone. In its place was something heavier. Shame. Humility. Gratitude. Grace was still locked in the staff quarters. The head housekeeper had been harsh with her, accusing her of recklessness and overstepping. Grace sat quietly, praying, accepting whatever punishment was coming. When the door opened, she expected security. Instead, Austin Joshua walked in. Grace stood immediately, fear rising in her chest. This man could destroy her life with one word. She braced herself. But Austin did something no one expected. He knelt. Grace gasped. The other staff members who had gathered outside the door froze in shock. "Forgive me," Austin said quietly. His voice broke. "I almost punished you for saving my daughter. I almost threw you out for doing what the world's best doctors refused to do." Tears filled Grace's eyes. "Sir, please stand. You don't need to kneel." But Austin stayed down. "I spent millions chasing solutions. I flew across continents. I trusted experts. But God used your willing hands. He used your faith. He used your love." He finally stood and looked Grace in the eyes. "You didn't just give my daughter her hearing. You gave me back hope." He turned to the entire household staff gathered in the hallway. "From today, Grace is not just a house help. She is family. She will be treated with the highest respect in this home." The head housekeeper looked stunned. Other staff members whispered. But Nora, standing beside her father, ran straight to Grace and wrapped her arms around her waist. "Thank you, Mama Grace," Nora whispered. Grace's heart melted. She hugged the little girl close, tears streaming down both their faces. That night, Austin couldn't sleep. He sat in his study staring at his wife's photograph. 4 years, he'd carried guilt. 4 years, he'd believed he failed his family. But tonight, something shifted. Maybe his wife's death wasn't a punishment. Maybe Nora's healing wasn't just luck. Maybe God had been working all along, waiting for the right moment. The right person. A humble, prayerful woman who saw what others missed. But Nora's attachment to Grace was only beginning. And what happened next would test Austin's pride in ways he never imagined. Still not subscribed? Comment why, we'd love to hear from you. Weeks passed. Nora's world exploded with sound. She discovered music. She laughed at jokes. She called out to birds and listened for their replies. But the most beautiful sound to her was Grace's voice. Nora followed Grace everywhere. When Grace cleaned, Nora helped. When Grace cooked, Nora sat nearby talking endlessly. When Grace prayed, Nora knelt beside her. One evening, Austin hosted important business partners for dinner. Nora was supposed to greet them politely and return upstairs. Instead, she grabbed Grace's hand and pulled her forward. "Everyone, this is my mummy," Nora announced proudly. The room went silent. Austin's face flushed. His guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. Grace tried to step back, embarrassed, but Nora held her tight. Later that night, Austin sat Nora down gently. "Sweetheart, Grace is wonderful. But she's not your mother." Nora's eyes filled with tears. "She loves me like a mother. She takes care of me like a mother. Why can't she be my mother?" Austin had no answer. How do you explain social class to an 8-year-old? How do you tell your daughter that the world judges people by wealth and status? He'd always imagined remarrying someone polished, educated, elegant, someone who fit his world, someone the business community would respect. But as weeks turned into months, Austin began to notice things. Grace's humility never felt weak. Her kindness never felt fake. She managed the household with quiet strength. She handled conflict with wisdom. She treated everyone with dignity, from the gardener to the head chef. And Nora bloomed under her care. The lonely, silent child had become joyful, confident, and deeply loved. One Sunday morning, Austin found Grace and Nora in the garden. Grace was teaching Nora how to plant flowers. They were both laughing, dirt on their hands, completely content. Something cracked open inside Austin's chest. This was what a home felt like. Not expensive furniture. Not important guests. Just love. Simple. Real. Pure. He started spending more time with them. At first, he told himself it was just to bond with Nora. But truthfully, he looked forward to Grace's smile. Her laughter. Her gentle spirit. They cooked together on weekends. Grace showed him how to make simple meals his own mother used to make. Austin, who'd eaten in 5-star restaurants across the world, found himself enjoying plain food made with love. They talked for hours. Grace shared stories of her grandmother, her struggles, her faith. Austin shared his fears, his regrets, his loneliness. Slowly, respect turned into friendship. Friendship turned into something deeper. But Grace was terrified. She saw the way Austin looked at her. And it scared her. Men like him didn't marry women like her. She was nobody. She had nothing. One evening, Austin asked Grace to join him on the balcony. His hands were shaking. "Grace, I need to tell you something," he began. "For years, I believed I needed someone impressive. Someone the world would approve of. But the truth is, I need someone real. Someone kind. Someone who sees people, not status." Grace's heart pounded. "Sir, I'm in love with you," Austin said quietly. "Not because of what you did for Nora, but because of who you are. And if you'll let me, I want to spend my life proving you made the right choice." Tears filled Grace's eyes. "I'm scared. Your world is so different from mine." Austin smiled gently. "Then we'll build a new world. Together." Months later, on Grace's 28th birthday, Austin told her they were going shopping. Grace was confused but excited. She'd never had a real birthday celebration. But Austin didn't drive to a store. He drove to a grand hall. When Grace walked inside, hundreds of people stood waiting. "Happy birthday!" they shouted in unison. Grace broke down sobbing. Austin held her as she cried. 28 years without being celebrated. 28 years feeling invisible. Not anymore. Austin stood before the crowd and spoke clearly. This woman brought love back into my home. She restored my daughter. She reminded me what truly matters. And today, I want to honor her. Then, in front of everyone, Austin knelt and pulled out a ring. Grace, will you marry me? Grace could barely breathe. Through tears, she whispered, yes. The crowd erupted in cheers. Their wedding was grand. Billionaires, business leaders, and celebrities attended. But the ceremony was filled with worship, gratitude, and humility. It wasn't about showing off wealth. It was about celebrating restoration. A year into their marriage, Austin enrolled Grace in a top business school. He believed in her potential. He wanted her to grow, learn, and lead. Together, they used their wealth to help others. They funded orphanages. They paid hospital bills for struggling families. They provided scholarships for children who had nothing. Nora grew into a bright, confident, joyful young girl. Healthy, loved, whole. And their home, once filled with silence and sadness, overflowed with laughter, faith, and purpose. Expertise without compassion is incomplete. The world's best doctors had knowledge, but they lacked care. Grace had no degrees, but she had love and attention. Sometimes, the answer isn't in expensive solutions. It's in someone willing to truly see the problem. Humility opens doors pride keeps locked. Austin had wealth and power, but it took humility to kneel before a house help. Grace had nothing, but her humble heart made her worthy of a kingdom. True greatness isn't about status, it's about character. God uses the willing, not just the qualified. Grace wasn't a doctor. She wasn't educated. But she was available. She was faithful. And God used her hands to perform a miracle. Don't wait until you feel ready. Just be willing. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to our channel. Every week, we share stories of restoration, hope, and faith that remind you miracles still happen. Thank you very much for watching.